lift your voice and celebrate. If you know he's been good, you say, he's holy, 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 awesome. Somebody ought to lift your voice and testify.
WBISLP 1069, Winterville, Ayden, Grifton, Southside, Greenville, North Carolina.
I try to be a better man, but folks just don't understand. Try to do all I can to deal with this addiction in me. Lord, I want to change. I can't stay the same, but the sins that in my vein, it's trying its best just to kill me.
Welcome our awesome radio listeners and our Facebook watchers, our Android users, our Alexa users, and our Apple users, and now our GPAT, but that's not the now, but our now Roku watchers and listeners. Yes, we are Roku. Awesome Radio and GPAT, we are now Roku. We done gone rogue, y'all. Yes, this is the U-Turn Show. Just in case you're wondering what in the world is going on, welcome to Awesome Radio 106.9 on your FM dial. We are streaming live from our Awesome Radio page, also from our GPAT page, and from the Richard A. Taylor Publishing page. Yep. All right. You can also find us on our website at wbisawesomeradio.org. And again, thank you and welcome to U-Turn with a twist on tonight. So some unexpected events happened tonight. So Richard, we are his guest for tonight. So Richard is on the hot plate tonight. Yeah. Aren't you, Richard?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You're on the hot plate tonight. So we have Vernon Garrison. Hello, Vernon.
Hello.
All right. And myself, Akila Thickpen. We have put Richard on the hot plate, and we're going to talk about some Richard A. Taylor life events on tonight. And also, we have this book by Richard Taylor, and it's called Brushes with Death, The Blood of Jesus. We're going to find out more about this. And Richard A. Taylor, it's about your life, right?
Yes.
When you were out on the streets dealing and using drugs.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
And you had brushes with the death.
Yes.
I do remember you getting shot.
Yes.
In the buttocks area.
Yeah.
Was that the first time or the second time?
The second time.
The second time. All right. Mm-hmm. And then how you survived by the blood of Jesus. So we're going to get into all that. And Vernon Garrison, he is what I say an expert in street life, so to speak. So he'll be asking some questions too. Okay. Would that be all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So if there's anything we ask and you're uncomfortable about answering, just answer it anyway. Okay.
All right.
All right. So let's get into this show. Richard A. Taylor, tell us about yourself.
I am from Goldsboro, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in the small town of Goldsboro, North Carolina. I grew up in the prototypical household. I had two parents. Father was a minister. Mother kept us involved in church, very active in our lives. Was very, very astute in school, athletics, and other things, very involved in the church, played the drums in the church. So had a fairly, what some people would say, a good childhood. But around the age of 12 or 13, I started gravitating towards things that older friends, older relatives were doing, other peers who did not come up in the same environment that I did were doing. And that, involved, smoking at an early age, drinking at an early age.
Smoking what?
Smoking cigarettes and marijuana at an early age. Started, even gambling in school, what we call flipping quarters or matching quarters. I don't know if y'all know about that, but we used to flip quarters and match them during math class, and then ventured out to about 13, 14, used to buy little quarter ounces or half ounces of weed, sell them to our friends in school. And that ventured out into, buying small amounts of crack cocaine and selling them. Started venturing out into the drug areas of Goldsboro, North Carolina. There was one notorious area called the Block. And, that's where I really, dove into being and learning, the aspects of dealing and, gambling and criminal activity. And so that led into probably 2 decades of, being involved in criminal activity, being sent to jail, jail numerous times between the ages of 16 and 21. I got sentenced to a year at the age of 21 for my third DWI. I was actually charged with robbery twice at the age of 19 and at the age of 20. Those charges were eventually dropped to lesser charges. Was shot in Durham, North Carolina. When I went to the North Carolina Central, as I went to school, attended school there, but my main priority was to sell marijuana to students, and I got shot in a robbery attempt. And at the end of my first semester, which caused me to move back home, and then of course, as I mentioned, I got sentenced to a year for my third DWI, and so I just had a long foray of a list of charges. Everything from, like I said, robbery to gun possession, marijuana possession, stolen firearms.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Taylor, Vernon Garrison here. Hello to everyone. I hope you can hear me well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on my Denzel right now. You might need a drink from that Nas if you can walk with me just for a moment, sir.
Yes.
I've heard your story. I'm so impressed by your entrepreneurship and your U-turn. But I got a question, sir. Isn't it about time for lockdown? As a former CEO, attention center, isn't it about time for? Aren't you getting sleepy right now, sir?
It's about 10 o'clock.
It's about time for you to go from dorm to dorm to finish your trading. Get ready to lock things in for the night. Is that right, sir?
It's about that time. Oh yeah. Some places it's 10, some places it's 11. I don't know. Maybe on the weekends. Maybe. It gets a little bit late on the weekend, depending on what CEO's working.
That's right. You're exactly right, sir. Depending on what CEO is working.
CEOs that be a little lenient on you. So
no doubts, and I believe in those that are listening. Yes, that is those that are incarcerated right now. I want to give a shout out to you. This gentleman is a living example, and he's a representative of righteousness, and he's living it and demonstrating it. Also, I want to say your life can take a U-turn as well. I did homeless shelter, even detention supervisor of maximum security.
Wow.
For 5 years. The most intense part is when you first enter the system. So that's where I come from, and I met many young men your age as they entered the system. I want to ask you one more time, sir. Isn't it time for lockdown?
Yeah.
Lights out, my friend.
Because actually, I think you will probably be one of the ones that'll give us that extra 15 minutes to finish making that soup or that swole, as we call it. You give us that 15 minutes to finish the hot water in the sink.
That's right. So you can tell by the tone of my voice that, yes, sir, I will give you the time. As long as you got me talking, I'm fine. When I stop talking, then, I'm about to put some things together. But, what message would you give to those, being that I had you to pivot from talking to your personals? What message would you give the guys that's listening right now in their earphones and, across the nation that are incarcerated? What would you say to them directly right now, sir?
I would tell them to use their time that they are incarcerated to formulate a plan, because we all know that recidivism, or going back to prison when you get out, is very high, and there are certain pitfalls that are formulated to capture or entrap one to go back into certain lifestyle. So I would advise everyone to use this time wisely to formulate a plan. Develop relationships, whether it's inside or outside, that would help nurture and grow the vision or your opportunity to succeed. Because there are those that don't have a lot of support when they get out. So it's definitely important to have a plan and be diligent enough to work that plan when you get out. Because I've been in, several times, and I hear a lot of guys saying what they're going to do when they get out, but when they get out, it's a whole nother different story. There are a lot of hands out, there are a lot of demands, there are a lot of obligations, and that sometimes causes one to revert back to certain type of lifestyle. But I would advise them to just stay diligent and use that time that you're in there to really formulate a plan, believe in yourself, believe in God, and really be committed to working that plan, and it will turn out for your best.
Okay, I just got there and just got locked down. Everything's settling down. I got a cellie. We talking. I'm fine. I'm kind of wondering if I know him or her from the street. I'm coming at you tonight. First day in, you're sharing with me, dedicate my time and go ahead and start my own repentance and change your life. But I got to figure out right now, if I'm just in, do snitches really get stitches? So what you got to tell me is, do I ask that question? Do I find out who's in the dorm? Let's say I got first appearance coming up. I know I'm going to be talking to the investigators for the next couple of days or whenever they're going to show up. My attorney might show up. So legal advice is at a distance. But I got to figure out, how do I start talking if I'm going to try to figure out how to get out? What's your recommendation to somebody in that situation? Do I talk, or do I just do my time and just because I was in the game? What would you say to somebody like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. It is very imperative actually that when you first come into prison, you want to definitely keep your mouth shut and observe.
Ooh, that was close. Y'all hear that?
You definitely want to keep your mouth shut and observe your surroundings. And as far as, cooperating with, police, you definitely put yourself in a sticky position when you do that, especially when you are at fault. There's this thing where, you don't supposed to tell on another person, especially when you are doing something wrong. So if you're out there selling drugs and you're the one who got caught, and then the other person that you may have been with or dealing with, they didn't get caught, you have to, hold yourself accountable, and you have to, kind of take your shots on the chin or take your shots in the chest when you are guilty as charged. And you have to let the authorities do their part in helping get the other people they want. Because a lot of times, even if you do cooperate, even if you do try to talk to police, you're still going to end up in a bad situation. Very rarely do people come out scot-free with that. And as far as just even like talking to your cellmates, you do have to be careful, because they have this thing where the things that you might say to your cellmate can go back, tell his lawyer what you told him, trying to help their case. And a lot of times you think you're just confiding in a friend, or you're trying to explain your side of the situation. But, the person who you are talking to can actually use what you told them in the confidence of your own cell, and go back to the DA, the lawyer, and tell them, what you told them in order to help themselves. So that's a very sticky situation when you're talking about, communicating, especially about, working with police officers, and also putting yourself at risk when talking too much. As they say when you first get arrested, anything you say can and will. And what most people don't know, will is very, very prominent. Even if you're saying you didn't do anything, they can use what you said, saying you didn't do anything, to hold against you. So it's definitely best to keep your mouth shut, and basically talk to your attorney when questioned.
There is, I'm gonna move around just a little bit so I can make sure I hit my main points before the night's over with. When you're talking about gain, what is this person? Can they gain right now? They're locked up. Do I gain honey buns? How do I get into a work system? How do I gain favor? Do a person going to jail, they're traumatized, okay? Maybe they're there for the first time. What is it? What's the key for getting up in the morning after breakfast? What's the key to, to finding status in a lockup situation? You got family home, you got this. Where's the hope at?
As I mentioned, when you first come in, you have to be quiet and observe. You have to observe who's doing what, who is kind of controlling everything, the cell blocks, because the inmates control, the cell blocks or the dorms, whether you know it or not. You have to be cognizant of who's rowdy, who's not, who is somebody that's calm, and you got to find your place. If you see somebody playing chess and you know how to play chess, you sit at the table and you ask them, can you play? And then, you develop that relationship like that. And then you kind of move around. If somebody's playing cards, if, like you said, it's some people will see you and they would actually see how you carry yourself, especially if you don't come in rowdy, if you don't come in like Mr. Bad. They're going to come to see you and find out what's your deal. And then you'll be able to speak with who you would like to speak with, because sooner or later, and that's how I always played. I would come in and just keep my mouth shut. Not because, first of all, I hate to be there. Now, me, I've been going so long. And when I first got locked up, I was in my hometown. So I knew everybody in jail. So I kind of learned early on to just mind your business. And then sooner or later, you'll be able to find your place and find who you should deal with and who you should not deal with.
If just 1/3 with the incarceration rate across America as it is, if just 1/2 of all the people of color, the black men and black women, were out into population right now, earning 10 or 15 or 20 or $30,000 remedial salaries, the whole United States would be different. That is, did you see any type of strategy from the system, from the government, for locking you up, for, so to speak, harvesting men of color? I was in the system in 93, 4, 5, 6, 7, where they had the war on drugs. Bill Clinton had the war on drugs. Everybody came through had all these miscellaneous charges. Some of them had Fed charges, talking about they're going to give me 40 years if I don't tell on somebody. So there was a whole lot going on inside. But did you feel like you were being set up for failure in your community, or a strategy from law enforcement to target young black men? Or did you feel it was a result of your upbringing? What were you thinking, and looking retrospectively now, did you see any kind of scheme going on to lock you up several times and not make you a successful person?
Well, actually, in retrospect, now I didn't see it then, because you are actually caught up in all of the hype. Like you said, in the early 90s, there was this resurgence of drug activity, of smoking weed. You had one thing I always cite is the music that we listened to, what they called gangster rap. You had a resurgence of Eazy-E, Mobb Deep, Snoop Dogg, Ice-T, Ice Cube, that all glorified selling drugs, shooting guns, smoking weed, and glorified this lifestyle in music and videos. And so it made it seem exciting. So we really weren't thinking about the long-term ramifications of getting caught with guns, of getting that felony, of getting caught with drugs. And until, as I came of age, and it took me about until I was 30, and I kept, being in the system for about 10 years and seeing the overwhelming, disproportionate amount of blacks in prison. And then I noticed that, okay, well, wow. I always use this. Half of my junior high football team, which was about 50 men, over half of my junior high football team had been in prison or jail.
You kidding me?
Yes, and I wish I had that picture right now. But I think we're going to go back to break. But just hold that thought because this is definitely something that I've studied now, and I have a.
We have about 1 minute to break, and we're going to come back with more of Richard A. Taylor. This is the U-turn here on Awesome Radio with a little twist. Richard A. Taylor is in the hot seat as Vernon Garrison asks him questions, and I might throw in a little jab here and there and everywhere. So you're listening to Awesome Radio 106.9 on your FM dial. We are live on Facebook. We do have some mobile crisis information just in case you may be having a mental health issue about going to jail while you're in jail, getting out of jail, having to transition from being incarcerated to being back on the street. We do have mobile crisis information available for you. So you stick and stay, keep it locked right where you have it, 106.9 on your FM dial and Facebook Live. We'll be right back with more of U-Turn after this.
What should ministry speakers call love offerings? Are they taxable? Stay tuned.
Pastors, take note. Attorney David Gibbs Jr. has some legal advice you'll want to put into practice. Here he is with today's Legal Alert.
As Pastor Edwin approached retirement, he'd begun doing a bit of traveling and guest speaking at other like-minded churches. He did not charge for his service.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah. These sweet
Okay. The question I'm about to ask is, why did it take 10 years to wake up? Okay, that one, and for others who have people on lockup, when you woke up, what did you do? And so I want to come at you with that because I really didn't know. I never really clocked anybody to see when they had their moment.
With love or without love, it's all taxable. He would need to properly report everything he received on his taxes. It could be a crime and a violation of the law not to do so. And if caught, there can be significant and serious penalties. Report the income. It's required.
The Legal Alert with attorney David Gibbs Jr. is a presentation of this station and the Christian Law Association.
Now, should we assume... This is Ken Ham, founder of the ministry that built a full-size Noah's Ark attraction. Radiometric dating is not proof of long ages. Here's what I mean. Radiometric dating measures the decay of one element, the parent, into a new element, the daughter. Now, the rate of this decay and the number of daughter atoms found in rocks is used to come up with a date for the rocks. Now, there's three big unprovable assumptions behind this. So let's look at the first one, that we can know the conditions when the rock was formed. But in most cases, no one was there to observe the rock forming. Scientists just assume they can know the original number of parent atoms based on the current number of parent and daughter atoms. But that's an unprovable assumption.
Discover more about radiometric dating and the real age of the Earth when you visit us at AnswersRadio.com. Yes, you'll get answers to your questions at AnswersRadio.com.
This is Awesome Radio.
This ain't your plan for me to die up in these streets. Oh Lord, can you help me?
Welcome back to Awesome Radio 106.9 on your FM dial and the show U-Turn with Richard A. Taylor with a little twist on tonight. So thank you for coming back and joining us. Don't forget to call in. This is a live show, 252-756-2008, 252-756-2008. I'm Akila Thickpen. Vernon Garrison is here also joining us, asking these trivial questions too. Richard A. Taylor and his life out on the street and how Richard made his U-turn. We do have 5 free books to give away. This is the story of Richard A. Taylor's life. It's called Brushes with Death, The Blood of Jesus. Tell us something about what's in this book, The Brushes of Death. What do you mean by the brushes of death and then the blood of Jesus?
Well, Brushes with Death, the title comes as a result of the climax of the book. in which in 2008 I was shot 3 times at close range while holding my 3-month-old daughter. And I was shot close range in the groin, in the hip, and in the rectum. And because of the way that the bullets entered and the trajectory of the bullets, and I received no substantial injuries, that I know that it was nothing but the hand of God, to kind of protect me. Even when the situation was happening, I felt something. I felt the danger, but I also felt, something covering me at the same time. So it's just miraculous that, I survived that instance and was able to actually walk out of the hospital the next day. But that's just one instance where I faced, dangerous situations because of my own actions and the lifestyle that I lived in. I think that, I prayed for I was praying for about 3 or 4 years for God to take me out of that lifestyle. And, as they say, sometimes be careful what you pray for, because that was the way he did it. That was my wake up call. And that allowed me to go back and reevaluate my life. And, that's started the culmination of that book right there.
So early in the comments, your mother, Aletta Taylor, did I pronounce her?
Yes, Aletta, great.
Aletta Taylor said, keep your mouth shut.
Uh-huh.
And so Terrence Thornton said, good diagnosis, or good dialogue, I'm sorry. And he says he's loving it. And both you and Vernon are on point with the questions and answers. All right. So Vernon Garrison.
Yes, ma'am.
You have the floor.
All right. Well, I want to say there are guys that come up to me that when I started in the judicial system and I started as a CO or attention officer, hey, there were some good words you told me years ago, or when they were juveniles, and I spent a lot of time talking when I could and when it was appropriate to chat with guys. And so 10, 15 years later, they'll stop me and say this and say that. Some who done 25 years, some who done a 30 piece will see me and say a few things. You, on the other hand, went in and out around 10 years from what I'm gathering.
Mm-hmm.
Your reality points that I need to change my life came when you got shot, or were you proactive at all? Were you saying, now this is not the life I want to live? Which was the most pivotal one that made you make the U-turn? Because I know somebody's listening, and I'm pretty much expecting you, as you do with your show, wake people up and say, turn around before you get shot in what you say, the rectum a while ago, in the buttocks.
Yeah.
What it took you 10 years, yo?
Yeah.
Talk to me.
But see, the thing was, and the thing is, sometimes when you have drug addictions, and that was one of my major things, was drug addiction. I started using cocaine recreationally, sniffing cocaine recreationally at the age of 18. And when I moved to Virginia Beach in the age of 2000, at the age of 23, I met a major cocaine connection, and I had like unlimited supply of cocaine. And when I began to sell it, I also began to use and have parties, and I was the cocaine guy. So people would come and use, and after everybody would leave, I would still be left with a bunch of cocaine. If anybody knows anything about cocaine, once you get started, it's hard to stop. So, I would be up 3 and 4 days using cocaine. And that was the kind of fuel to keep me engrossed in that lifestyle. Because, I don't want to sell drugs anymore, but I have this cocaine habit. But I'm also making all this money from cocaine. And, everything was going fine until I got shot. But I also knew, as a lot of my peers I found out, it's not going to go good forever. When you live in that type of lifestyle, you're dealing with certain type of people. You're dealing with other addicts, other people who are addicted, not only to drugs, but also addicted to money, addicted to robbery, addicted to the excitement of getting large amounts of money at one time with little or no work. So you have people coming at you from all types of angles. And of course, with a drug habit, sometimes you're not thinking clear. You're putting, like I said, yourself, your family in danger, my baby in danger. And I still cringe to that, to think of it sometimes today that, she could have been hit in those bullets. So actually, even after I got shot, I moved back to North Carolina for a while. I tried to stay straight, but once again, I still had that cocaine habit, even after I began to sell drugs. So that caused me, because when I got shot, I was found with drugs on the scene. So I had an 8-year probation sentence in Virginia Beach, in which I had to move back to Virginia. And the pivotal point, I would say, it didn't come from a CO per se, but it came from my probation officer, because my probation officer, Mr. Bernard Johnson, shout out to Mr. Bernard Johnson in Norfolk, he actually could have violated me on my first positive drug test for a dirty urine in Norfolk, Virginia. But he actually allowed me to fail drug tests 11 times. And each time I would fail, he would say, "Hey, man, I'm supposed to violate you, man, but think about, what is going to take for you to stop using drugs." Now, I wasn't selling drugs anymore, but I still, still had a habit. What is it going to take for you to stop using drugs? What is it going to take? What is it going to take? Think about your mother and father. Think about your daughter. What is she going to do if you go back to jail? And this man, he was so patient. He would assign me drug abuse classes. He assigned me 3 of them. But finally, in 2019, when I was slated to get off probation, he had to send all the paperwork into the courts. And the courts saw that I had failed 11 drug tests over the 8-year period, and the court violated me. And when the court violated me, I was locked up in Virginia Beach jail for 2 months. And they wanted to give me 2 years in prison. And for that 2 months, I prayed and I fasted. And I looked at all of those guys. Some was 50, some was 60, some was younger than me. But I focused on mostly the older guys. I was like, I do not want to be these guys. And so it was at that point I prayed to God and said, if you let me out on October the 7th, and you take me off this probation and you don't allow me to get any time, I'm going to go get some help. And on that day, he answered all 3 prayers. And a month later, I entered into a rehabilitation facility called Life Changers Outreach in Asheville, North Carolina. And ever since that day that I entered the program, I have been free from drugs and alcohol. And so I'm going on 2 years now. But I would say, to answer your question, a lot of times it's drugs and alcohol. If anybody has had or is still dealing with drugs and alcohol, they can tell you sometimes how hard it is, how to know. Like I knew, like I could have did 8 years if I used this cocaine, knowing I got a drug test tomorrow, or knowing got a drug test in 3 days. The addiction in the pool of cocaine was so strong, I could not hold out for 3 days.
We are about to take another break. I tell you, this information is so good. If you're in a crisis, here is the mobile crisis hotline, 1-866-437-1821. That's 866-437-1821. We're Awesome Radio. This is U-Turn with a twist. Richard A. Taylor. So we do have a caller. Caller, I want you to hold the line. We're going to answer it, but I want you to hold the line. We'll be right back after this. You are listening to Awesome Radio. We'll be right back.
Hollywood Live.
She posted photos of her and the new guy, who happens to be a white man, who accompanied the talk show host to her son's birthday party over the weekend. Wendy shared this cute snap with her man in the car caption, "My son's 21st birthday party on the yacht in #Miami was everything he wanted, even my boyfriend." I'm so happy for Wendy and glad that she's doing well. The Reverend Jesse Jackson and his wife Jacqueline remain under doctor's observations and were responding positively to treatment for COVID-19. Physicians were carefully monitoring their condition because of their ages, according to their son, Jonathan Jackson, one of the couple's 5 children. He said in a statement, Jesse is 79, his mom is 77, but they're both resting comfortably and responding very positively to their treatments. And for all these stories and more, make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Tanya Hollywood and at AURN.com.
Formerly Asmo, now Denso Manufacturing Company, is having a job fair Wednesday, August 25th, 9 a.m. to 12 noon, 1125 Sug Parkway, Greenville, right off 264 near the Pitt County Fairgrounds. For more information, the number is 252-754-1000. Ask for HR. Denso Manufacturing Incorporated, known for making windshield wiper motors and radiator fan motors for all major car manufacturers. You still have time to plan for this job fair presented by Denso Manufacturing Incorporated, 9 a.m. to 12 noon, Wednesday, August 25th, 1125 Sug Parkway, Greenville, 252-754-1000, 252-754-1000. Ask for HR.
Thank you for listening to 106.9 WBIS LP Awesome Radio.
Thank you so much for coming back, sticking and staying with us here on Awesome Radio. Don't forget to join us on our website. You can listen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from our website and from our mobile apps. Our website address is WBISawesomeradio.org. We have Android, we have Apple, and we have Alexa. You can say to Alexa, "Hey, Alexa, play Awesome Radio, Winterville, NC." And she will hearken unto your command and put Awesome Radio on that Alexa device and listen, take us everywhere you go. So we're back to U-Turn now. With a twist, Richard A. Taylor is the host of U-Turn here on Awesome Radio, but we're twisting him around and he is telling us more about his story, Brushes with Death, the Blood of Jesus. Thank you so much for tuning in. Caller, call us back, 252-756-2008. 252-756-2008. Vernon.
Okay, so now you talking about your call to action and how you submitted yourself into a program, and drugs was the influence that clouded your vision and your perception, even though you were, so you were pretty much under the influence of bad decision after bad decision, along with cocaine. So now the reality is there are people listening that are not in prison, they're not in jail, that are on cocaine right now. And if it's not cocaine, it might be food. It might be some type of vice that they have. I recall people hanging up in the jail. And as soon as I get them down to the floor, oh man, I'm not going to do that no more. I'm not even going to mess with women no more. They were making commitments based on the crisis that they're in. They're locked up. They're in a situation. I'm not going to do drugs no more. I'm not going to do this. And I would hear these audible commitments as they gasp for air, thanking God that we pretty much got them down or saved them. A lot of commitments are getting made in all of our lives, not necessarily in jail or some of us got our own little prison we walking around in every day. So I'm not just saying the guys or girls that are in jail. But what would you say about the commitment to going to rehab and sticking it out and allowing the Lord to change your life like he did? Some people can't hear God as clearly, or they hear this big audible voice and their flesh is weak and their spirit is willing. But what would you say is the turning point right now for somebody listening? Because you've been through this. Your book explains it all, more detail. But what can you tell us tonight as a life jacket to someone who's just hanging on and you have been through it, and how to get started with a U-turn?
Well, the first step is surrender. I mean, you have to surrender and by surrender, I mean, of course, to a higher power. But what you have to do is surrender your ability. You're trying to do it, because I thought I could do it by myself for so long. My mom would always tell me, you need to get help. You need to get help. And I would be like, I'm fine. And you have a lot of people who are addicted to drugs that think they are fine, and they may be. and they may want to stop. You know, I've been in cars and houses with plenty of people doing drugs, and we had the same conversation night in and night out. Yeah, man, this got to be our last night, man. You know, we gonna stop this. And then, you know, after the high goes, after you sleep it all, after you get something to eat, then you forget everything you said, just like you said. But the first step has to be surrender, knowing that you cannot do it alone. And that's what you have to do, and admit that you need help. You know, once you start to admit that you need help and you're honest, not with everybody else, it's with yourself. And, you know, we do have that stigma, just like, you know, I even just the mere mention of rehab. Oh, you went to rehab? You know, there's a stigma to that. Oh, he's in rehab. That's a bad thing. No, that's a good thing. That's actually a good thing to go somewhere far away where nobody knows you, where you have no obligations. There's no, you know, you don't have any rent to pay. The only thing you have to do is sit and reflect. And, you know, the ministry, I would say ministry that I went to, because it was a Christian-based ministry, that's all we did. We read scriptures. We went to class each day. We had services 3 times a week. On the weekends, we went out and fundraised and got other people in the program. And that's how we earned our stay, by going out fundraising in front of Walmarts and telling our testimonies of, you know, the program and what it has done for us. And so the first step, once again, and that is the hardest. And actually, at that point when I did it, it was the easiest thing for me to do, because I was literally tired, because I knew that every bad decision I made, every time I got in trouble, every time I went to jail, drugs or alcohol were a prominent factor in the decisions that led me to going to jail. So I would say don't be afraid to surrender, and don't care what anybody thinks of you, because the only person that you have to worry about judging you is the man upstairs. And the only people that you really have to be concerned about is those family members, your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your children, who have seen you struggle, who have seen you go through it. You know, we try to hide those things, but people know there's a reason why you're not showing up to family functions, why you're always late, why you're avoiding them, why you're not picking up the phone.
Now, Richard, you said the man upstairs. We're not afraid to say Jesus. We're not afraid to say our Heavenly Father on this station, okay?
Yes.
So who is the man upstairs?
The man upstairs is God, the Savior, the one who took the desire for drugs and alcohol out of my system after nearly 3 decades of using drugs and alcohol, you know. And I remember the day plainly. I was sitting in the house that we were living in, and 2 guys were just arguing. They were arguing. And I was getting my hair cut, and I just felt the awesome peace. And I was like, yeah, this is the peace I've always wanted. And there's no drug that could ever, you know, these past 2 years have been way more fuller than the past 28 years that I've used alcohol, drugs, or smoked marijuana.
There was a inmate that I met who was probably one of the youngest, most violent inmates that I've met. He, in fact, long story short, the paperwork read, he discovered there was an undercover officer that was onto him, had been onto him for a while. He was the youngest drug dealer on the East Coast, held by the feds or captured by the feds. And he realized she was an undercover that was close to him. He drove her out, had his vehicle set up, locked her in the vehicle, and burned her alive. There was the most, and actually, you know, me and him had a laying on hands contest a couple of times, because he wanted to keep getting at the female officers that was on my shift. I don't know why they always gave me the prettiest female officers on the shift. I all women are pretty, okay? I'm just saying, it's just something they did. But me and him had a few bouts. But what I'm saying is that demonic spirit he had as a person, he was the most angriest young person I have ever met. And there's not 6 months that go by that I don't think about this guy. What will you say to those that are angry, that are violent, that you met while you was right in there? I remember you talking about your testimony and how you went in, and you were talking about the honey buns and how to find your place. I don't know if you've ever been in maximum security. You don't seem like a maximum security guy. You shaking your head real quick. But those people that are addicted to anger and may have mental health issues and violence, evidently you was in some violence on the street. What message do you have for those guys in your book, and how do they just surrender, like you just said, to God, but then all of a sudden somebody gonna walk up in their face tomorrow or do them wrong? They gotta hold that wolf back. But what can you say from your perspective of being locked up in order to get out? They're dealing with a probation officer that's saying the same thing that guy said to you. Well, why is it going to take for you? Just think about your mama, think about your family. But for anger and bitterness and a violent person, what can you say, and maybe what's in your book or whatever?
And one thing I've kind of learned, even with my interactions with violent people, and I have been locked up with some violent people. If my book, Wrongfully Accused, Rightfully Acquitted, I was accused of rape, kidnapping, abduction with intent to defile. So I was on the 7th floor of Norfolk City Jail with people who had 50 years for murder, people who were facing double murder, and we were all in close confine. So I've seen that type of violence firsthand. I actually was in a pretty dangerous situation with a guy. But one thing I've learned, when dealing with those is the violence stems from something, or the anger and the bitterness deals with something that happened early on. I recall, talking to people who had seen his mother get killed by his father. Those are deep rooted things that, that have to be dealt with and weren't dealt with as a child, whether they took them to counseling for a year or whatever. A lot of times, those counseling sessions, or people are really not concerned, they're there for the check, or if it's done through the courts, of course, they hurry up and shelter them through. So a lot of those things, man, like I said, children whose parents gave them drugs at 6, who just grew up around violence. So those are deep rooted issues that, once again, only God can bring that person to realize and to experience the love that every human desires. And some people weren't given that as a child. I think we have a caller.
Caller, you're live on the air. Awesome Radio, the U-Turn Show.
Good evening. I am enjoying and listening to this show intently. I wanted to make a comment. Everyone has their awakening, or has the opportunity, rather, to have their awakening. And I believe I heard Mr. Vernon speak about, he commented, 10 years took you so long. And it's like, I do believe by faith that everyone has an opportunity to get their awakening. And he posed a question to you, Mr. Richard, about what words would you have to say. And being an experienced correctional staff member, what my aim would be, and I worked in maximum security buildings, is to plant the seeds. Go ahead and plant the seeds of encouragement, plant the seeds of hope, plant the seeds of faith. And I believe that each individual, if they're willing, they will get their awakening. And lastly, I believe I heard Vernon say to you, you don't look like a maximum security guy. I would like to know, what does a maximum security person look like? Because last time I checked, they come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. Nonetheless, it is very important for us to know that addiction comes in many forms. We could be addicted to food. We could be addicted to behaviors. We could be addicted to sex. We could be addicted to lustful thoughts. We are definitely fruit inspectors as men and women of God, but we are definitely not judgmental. And to you, Mr. Taylor, I commend you. Keep on keeping on. I've actually lived in a home. My older brother was addicted to crack cocaine. And what I did ultimately, I prayed. Me, my mom, and my younger brother fast and prayed on his behalf. I'm sure that's what your mom and dad did. And his awakening came. It didn't come right after we said amen, but it did come not many days hence. So to those who are listening, if you have someone that has an addiction, get on your knees, fast and pray, and believe God that their awakening will come. Thanks for letting me share, and I'm enjoying the show.
Thank you so much as well.
Wow, thank you, caller. And I guess if I had to go back and change my words, I would say he doesn't seem like a D block maximum security guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean D block, depends on D block could be minimum security somewhere. So, yeah, excuse my overtone, but that was a wonderful call right there, man. Can you believe how she picked up on the things we were talking about and just brought it to perspective?
Yeah, and very, 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 very true, because I know that a lot of people were and still are praying for me, but I know certain situations doesn't occur without, as she said, prayer and fasting. So it's so many people out there, suffering, as she mentioned, with so many addictions, and there are, like she said, cross addictions. Whether it's drugs and sex, alcohol and gambling.
Right.
There's so many cross addictions, selling drugs and whatever, spending the money.
I got you. Let's bring this home. It's about the end of the show. Let's bring this home. We just got out.
Okay.
I just got out, and the temptations are out here. I'm saved. I'm trying to find holiness. I'm trying to seek God. I'm trying to work my little probation program or whatever. I'm trying to see about rehab, getting into recidivism program or to prevent recidivism, reentry programs, if you will. Yeah. How do what's your advice, and what does the book offer for someone who's coming out? Deliverance, bro. I'm out here on the street again. How do I stay out here? And how did you stay out? How you want to answer that?
You get with those people who are going on the path that you are going, or already on the path that you want to be. You find you a mentor, or find you a brother or a sister or a pastor or a minister or a businessman, someone who's volunteering in the community. You find something and you pour yourself into it. You always stay busy. And most importantly, you don't go back into the same crowd of people who are doing the same things that allowed you to get in there. And also take your time. Take your time. If you've done 5, 10 years, 15 years, even a year, the main thing is you can't get that time back. So I think a lot of people be in a rush to kind of jump back in the swing of things. But being incarcerated is a very traumatic experience, whether once again it's a day or 100 months. I've heard people who have only been locked up for a day was like, I don't see how they do it. So it takes a part of your humanity being away for that long and not being able to do and have the freedoms that a normal everyday human being has. So my advice was take your time and to rebuild yourself, to get that piece of your humanity back. And then you can, kind of further your goals and your aspirations. But most importantly, you get involved with someone who is doing the things that you want to do, or who has already overcame the path that you are walking on.
2 minutes left in today's show. Vernon, let's try to wrap this thing up as I give out this 24-hour, 7-day-a-week number. If you are having a crisis in your life, this is the mobile crisis number where they will come to you. They service several counties in eastern North Carolina. 866-437-1821. 866-437-1821. You're listening to U-Turn on Awesome Radio.
Once again, finally, I'm proud of those who listen to us tonight. I'm proud of you, my brother. but more so proud. I'm here for you. As long as you're here for me, sometimes I get addicted to chicken wings and cholesterol rising high, or trying to prevent sugar from going so high. Life and death threats us in a lot of ways, and I'm not trying to terminate myself.
Yeah.
So,
and that's another thing we do have to worry about is our diet. We do eat a lot of, and myself included. I like cupcakes. You know, so I know those cupcakes ain't doing me no good, all that sugar. And so we definitely have to, as we get older, have to mind our diet.
Well, I got one for you. Every time you eat a cupcake, think of me calling you Cupcake. There you go. I'm gonna attack your agenda.
We are certainly out of time. We are out of time for tonight's show. You're listening to Awesome Radio. We thank you for your time, giving us 1 hour of your time for the U-Turn Show. Join U-Turn every Tuesday at 10 p.m. As a matter of fact, go to our website, wbisawesomeradio.org, and look at the list of shows that we have, live talk shows that are wholesome. We point people back to Jesus Christ at the end of the day. My name is Akila. Thank you for your time again. You're listening to Awesome Radio 106.9 on your FM dial. God bless you.
All right, Cupcake.